For two reasons. One is, there's a lot of work that needs to get done and you need judges. And right now, there are emergency situations in districts across the country. But the second thing that happens is people will, at that point, just become more and more cynical about decisions that are coming down from the court. They're already cynical because so much of so many opinions just end up being straight 5-4. And it starts feeling like this is just a partisan alignment. But it gets much worse under these circumstances. People then just view the courts as an extension of our political parties, polarized political parties. And if confidence in the courts consistently breaks down, then you start seeing our attitudes about democracy generally starting to break down, a legitimacy breaking down in ways that are very dangerous. It's a gentleman's turn. Right here in the front. I am impressed by the way you guys did all get. Dressed up. Was there a memo sent out? Did the dean say, you guys? We want you to all because you aren't going to class like this. I know. I remember. Question, hello, Mr. President. Thank you very much for being here with us today. I'm a 2L here at the law school. My question for you is, what sorts of constitutional questions? Were at the forefront of your mind when deciding who your nominee should be? And what sorts of constitutional questions do you think Americans should be asking? themselves when assessing your selection and thinking about the 2016 presidential election? President Obama, well, I will tell you, as I said before. I'm very careful not to delve too specifically into a candidate's position on live issues. You're a well-informed 2L, you know the issues that people debate. There's a standard set of social issues that have been roiling society and the courts for a long time, whether it's LGBT rights, or abortion, or civil rights. What's interesting is there are a set of new issues that are going to be coming up that for your generation, I think are going to be increasingly salient. One great example is this whole debate around encryption. Which I think is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to have to figure out. In a society in which so much of your life is digitized. People have a whole new set of privacy expectations that are understandable. They also expect, though, that since their lives are all digitized, that the digital world is safe. Which creates a contradictory demand on government: protect me from hackers, protect me from terrorists. Protect me from etc., etc., etc. But I don't want you to know any of your sick business, and I don't even want you to have the ability to investigate some of that. Business when it happens, because there's broader implications and we're worried about Big Brother. And so there's going to be a whole series of issues around that I think will be coming up. I think there are a range of economic issues that date back very far. to the earliest days of the court and were prominent during the Great Depression and FDR's era that have gone into abeyance. People don't pay attention to them as much in terms of monopoly concentration, or antitrust issues. Etc. But I think in this current environment are going to becoming more prominent over time. And then, political participation issues and voting issues I think, and money in politics issues. That's a whole series of issues that I do believe are an important role for the court to play. Because if we're not effectively setting the rules of the political process, if that is delegitimized, then whatever outcomes are generated are subject to just endless contention. And this is separate from the judiciary. This is your president editorializing. Now, that's the history. We should be a society in which, at this point, we said, yeah, that history wasn't so good. That's not who we are, and there was a civil war fought about all this stuff. And we passed a whole series of laws like the Voting Rights Act, and at this point we should be at the point where we say, you know what, we want everybody to vote because that's the essence of our democracy. But we have not just federal laws, but state laws, that unabashedly discourage people from voting. Which is why we have some of the lowest voting rates of any advanced democracy in the world. And that's a problem. That's not something that I'm saying that to Congress, as well as to the presidency. As well as to governors, as well as state legislators. As well as to courts. That can't be right. There's no justification for that. You can't defend it. And I've always said, and this goes back to the young man's question earlier about political polarization. Maybe the single biggest change that we could make in our political process that would reduce some of the polarization. Make people feel more invested, restore integrity to the system, would be just make sure everybody is voting. Australia has got mandatory voting. You start getting 70 to 80% voting rates, that's transformative. All right. How much time do we have, by the way? How many? Moderator, time for one more. President Obama, we'll take two. The young lady in the green, right there in the sweater. Yes. That's you. Yes. You didn't remember what you were wearing today, did you? Question, so I think we can agree that in our nation, we celebrate diversity. Diversity of ethnicity is the basis, the background. And I'm just wondering, well, of course, U of Chicago is a diversity of ideas. I'm just wondering what diverse characteristics Judge Garland would bring to the Supreme Court. President Obama, well, he's from Skokie, which is very important. It's a great place. It's a great town. The way I've thought about diversity is not to think about any single seat as oh, I've got to fill this slot with this demographic. But rather, if I've got a broad set of nominees to make and this is true across the board, how do I make sure that I'm intentional throughout that process so that the talent of every American is and every potential candidate gets a fair look, and I have confidence that if I stick to that, if I do that, if I make sure that I'm broadening the search, broadening the pool, looking at a bunch of folks even if they're not going through the conventional paths, that I'll end up the process will result in diversity. And that, in fact, is what's happened. I am not to brag, but I have transformed the federal courts. From a diversity standpoint with a record that's been unmatched. But at no point did I say, oh, you know what, I need a black lesbian from Skokie in that slot. Can you find me one? And that's who we've been able to appoint. And so, when I looked at Merrick Garland, that was the person that the difference. Between the Supreme Court is just a handful of seats come up at any given time now. I appointed a Latino woman and another woman right before that, so. Yeah, he's a white guy, but he's a really outstanding jurist. Sorry. But this speaks to the broader debate about diversity that I think is important and obviously churns up in college campuses a lot. The question is, have you set up a process and are you intentional about giving everybody a shot? And are you thinking about roadblocks to why we're not seeing a more diverse population? And when you start asking those questions in whatever institution, I mean, I just met with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the combatant commanders. are key military leaders. And the US military, interestingly, has probably done as good of a job as any. Institution in our society when it comes to integration and bringing diverse people in, but as you go up the ranks, you start seeing that it becomes less and less reflective of the broader population and the troops, the men and women in uniform who are coming in. And so we had a really interesting conversation about what's happening. How much of this is that the young African American or Latino officer, or woman officer isn't mentored by the person right above them? And steered into particular assignments that are less likely to achieve a promotion? And what can we do about a different set of financial burdens that may exist? And if a lot of those folks are going in as enlisted men and women, because that's the opportunity that was presented to them and nobody told them they could apply to West Point. What are we doing to find outstanding enlisteds, and saying, you'd make a good officer and we're going to groom you? And all of that's not as satisfying as, when it comes to publicity, as just checking a box and saying, look, I appointed this person or that person in any particular slot. But that's where you start changing systems, and you start changing institutions. And you end up with a really broad-based change in access. And that's something that I really care deeply about because, just as is true in the military, it's true generally. Look, our society is changing. You cannot have a successful America if we are leaving out big chunks of the population from opportunity and leadership. It just doesn't work.